I'm Susan Rogers, President of PNHP, and welcome to our first candidate forum. I'm really excited about this, and one of the things that I really want to happen is for everyone to know who all the board members are and for the board members to also know each other. So as I said, this will be our first one that we've ever done, so we will have a chance to hear from all the candidates. So everyone on the call will be able to meet all the potential leaders, and keep in mind that you will hear from people who necessarily you may not vote for because you're not in their region. We have all of our board candidates joining us tonight, and they have all turned off their cameras. You will see them again when they speak. All the answers will be limited to 2 minutes, and the candidates have had time to prepare their answers. So just so you know, and that they are aware of the time limits. Everyone should have received their biographies and the CVs of all the candidates here. So we're not having any opening statements because hopefully if you've looked at those, you have an idea of what their stance are, what their interests are, and what they would have said that. So we're going to jump right into questions in a minute. We will not be taking questions from the audience because of the time constraints, but you can ask questions in the chat and the candidates may or may not respond depending upon if they're able to or not, or if they're busy listening to the other candidates' answers. And finally, I want to make sure that everyone is coming to our annual meeting in Denver. And whether you're attending or not, I really encourage you to contribute to the next Scale of Fund. And this is how we provide scholarships for the students to attend our meeting. Our last in-person meeting in 2019, we were able to give 80 scholarships to students. So I hope we can at least do that this year. So let's get going. And our first candidate that we will hear from will be Dr. Gronemeyer, who is running for an at-large seat. There you are, Pam. And the first question will be, what unique assets does PNHP have, and what role should PNHP play in the movement for Medicare for all? Go ahead, Pam.
Hello, I'm here. Okay, I'm fortunate to say that I've been a member long enough that I did get to meet Quentin Young, and I wish I could have helped Quentin see the introduction of Medicare for all in his lifetime. And I also knew Nick Scala because we had worked together. PNHP is that we have a wealth of physicians who are committed to the cause and who've done a lot of the basic research, whatever basic information, collecting of information to show why Medicare for all is the best way to go. We're fortunate to have Stephanie and David and Adam and all the people who've been previous presidents and board members. So we have excellent resources. We are an excellent place to find out information for op-eds and for whatever, for educating. We also encourage people, we also train people to educate others and some information. And our role, I think, partial to put people, correct the misinformation, correct the thing, and to explain to people why we as physicians feel Medicare for all would work or will work. And I'm a Medicare recipient now, and I can tell you Medicare works. I think that that patients, the people in general like to hear from physicians because we do know a lot about medicine. We sort of got relegated from being CEOs of hospitals because we were poor managers supposedly, but that's probably not very good anymore. We could probably be better managers than most of the CEOs are. But I just think that physicians are an excellent source of information and knowledge, and that we should be able to get out, educate people. So we're like the ultimate source for information. Have I finished too fast?
That's quite all right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time you spent and getting your answer together, and appreciate what you said. Okay, our next speaker will be Sanjeev Sharan.
Hi. Hi, I'm Sanjeev Sriram, and I believe that PNHP has the best brains and the best research and data on any and all aspects of single payer. We are a go-to resource for super smart doctors with objective, evidence-based material and high integrity. However, as more organizations like ACP and ABIM agree about single payer as a path forward, I want to see PNHP push the envelope. We must be more than an academic society. We must grow as a community of activists. In recent years, many of us have understandably focused our activism in electoral politics and legislative processes, and these are obviously important, but to truly advance Medicare for all, our entire movement must challenge and change socio-cultural boundaries about healthcare. Who is worthy or unworthy of care, whether any profiteering is acceptable, and establishing individual well-being and public health as collectively valuable. In 2019, our brethren in SNAP worked with coalition partners to break the AMA away from the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. We must develop similar direct actions to fight big pharma, mega hospital systems, and other corporate greed machines. Also, as difficult as it may be to hear, the single payer movement has been too white for too long. Pre-pandemic, 59% of America's uninsured were people of color, and we all know how devastating the pandemic has been for many of our brethren communities. PNHP must center racial equity if we are to build meaningful single payer. I'm happy to bring resources from my All Means All campaign to PNHP. To become a community of activists, I want to work with the board and our membership to use an Ocean's 11 strategy to our activism. Like Danny Ocean's crew, each of us have specific skills we bring to the work at hand. All of us cannot do all the things for all the projects all the time, and I want to work with the board and our members to be strategic about schemes and our skills. Some of us can do the rallies, marches, die-ins. Some of us are better at certain kinds of media. Others are artists, and still others are going to be benefactors, paying for train tickets, offering an extra room to spend the night, and getting food for activists when they're released from jail. The point is, everyone can't do everything, but each of us can do something. I'm excited to get strategic about our schemes and our skills and build Medicare for all. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be awe-inspiring stuff.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your enthusiasm and energy there. Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Phil Verhoff.
All right, thanks, Susan. Nice to go after Sanjeev. He was my chief resident in residency. So anyway, so just to address a couple of things, you know, I've been really happy to be with PNHP for the last 10 years. And in terms of who we are as a group, I think the fact that we are physicians for a national health program is perhaps our most important asset, right? Because people listen to physicians. Now, we all know about disinformation that's happening right now in the world. And obviously some people are listening to physicians more than others. But I think that trait alone is what our strength is. And so from my standpoint, physicians should drive the movement for Medicare for all. I think obviously this impacts everyone, but because of the unique position we have in this country and within the society, I think having a physician-led movement for Medicare for all is absolutely critical. To that end, I totally agree. We have been too white and frankly too old for too long. And this is what's driven me to get involved with SNAP and with student chapters and trying to get health professional students engaged. To me, that is perhaps the most important way that we can grow our organization is to set that bench up, to get that pipeline going, to see students seeing that this is a great group, but then wanting to stay involved once they're residents, once they're fellows, once they're early career physicians. To me, that is the group that we need to appeal to. We need to normalize advocacy for them and normalize seeing them getting involved, advocating for what they believe in. And the other aspect that I think is really critical is ultimately we need to build our membership base to a much greater extent. So not just the early career physicians, but getting physicians across the board engaged. And I think further outreach is going to be what builds our financial base to allow us to continue to do this work that we do. From my standpoint, we've set the standard for being the research source for information, but we need to now take it to the next level, which is working with other organizations, which is going out and reaching out to allies, to other progressive groups, legislative advocacy, a greater degree of getting out in the press, continuing to promote those kinds of activities. These are all things that we haven't done to as great an extent. So if I had to pitch someone on why they should become a PNHP member, honestly, this is a single issue group dedicated to the health of all people in the United States. And we are leading the way in every way, shape, and form as far as being the resource for information and being the resource for trust, right? We are the place where people trust their physicians. They should be trusting us. We should be driving that. We should be at the table. And so, I want to continue my work on the board and continue to drive this forward. I've been really excited to be on the board for the last couple of years, and really happy to see how Susan is activating the board to be a much more active group. This has been a really exciting time. So with that, I will shut up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Verha. And I do want to reiterate too, our last three candidates or speakers are all running for at-large seats. Our next speaker will be Dr. DeLong, who is running for a seat in the Northeast region.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers, and good evening, everybody. I'm Doug DeLong. To address the unique assets, from my perspective, this organization has at least three superpowers. First are the facts about healthcare in the United States that are completely indisputable. Too many are left behind, outcomes are not equitable, cost too much, and it follows that there's only one way forward, and that is to address this comprehensively, and that is the single payer system. Our second superpower is trust. We've heard this mentioned before. Clinicians in general continue to enjoy high regard in our society, both from our patients, our colleagues, our institutions, and our communities. And to its credit, PNHP has always hewed to evidence and avoided hyperbole. Finally, from my perspective, diversity is the other superpower. When you look across the spectrum, one does see, I think, a broad range of individuals, particularly with regard to age, gender, specialty, and geographic region. I agree that ethnicity definitely needs attention. And as to our role, I think there are two key elements. They are education and advocacy. Education has been and will continue to be our primary role. It's what physicians do. We are educating ourselves, our colleagues, our patients, and the greater society at large. And advocacy, something I'm particularly passionate about, and I'm not talking about this just in the traditional sense. I'm talking about, especially within our various professional societies. I noted that the resolution campaign is up and running, and I view this as a really great first step. From my perspective, we in fact may be actually at a so-called tipping point when you look at some of the things that have happened at the AMA and the ACP, where I recently served, given the good work of some of our younger colleagues in particular. So I'm confident with the combination of consistent, honest education, comprehensive advocacy, that we will eventually reach our collective goal for Medicare for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeLong. I appreciate your comments there. Okay, and our next speaker, also from the Northeast region, is Dr. Scott Goldberg.
Hi, thank you, Susan, and thank you everyone for being on the call, and excited to be a part of this debate with all the other candidates. So I joined PNHP in 2012 as a first-year medical student in Chicago, and helped to form the student chapter at my school, and really am proud of the work that I did along with other students during my time in medical school to really build the student movement for single payer and help to establish chapters throughout the country. And I was on the board as a student delegate from 2013 to 2016, and then as a delegate as a resident from 2016 to 2019 before deciding to step down from the board for a couple of years to focus on my work as an attending. I think PNHP is in a unique position in the movement for Medicare for All, as others have mentioned, as the only single issue physicians group. And since its inception, PNHP has provided the evidence base for national health insurance, helped to write legislation advancing single payer, and educated the physician and non-physician community alike on what needs to be done to transform our dysfunctional health system. But like Dr. Sriram said, moving forward, I would love to see PNHP take more of an action-oriented approach. Along with our partners in the legislature, unions, churches, and other allied organizations, I would love to see PNHP begin to build its membership with the goal of wielding the one tool that could seriously threaten the existence of private insurance, and that is the power of our labor. Only when we recruit all the physicians in this country who support single payer into our movement and withhold our labor from this unjust system in the form of a general strike will this private insurance industry cease to function. I'm afraid that all of our work will never come to achieve Medicare for all unless we engage in this form of direct action. And I look forward to working with you all in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate your comments too. Okay, next will be Dr. Marvin Mallett,
Thank you so much.
and he is also from the Northeast region. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, I agree with previous speakers largely. PNHP has at least two unique offerings, features. One is that the organization contains individuals with tremendous expertise on understanding the dysfunctional healthcare system we contend with every day. The other is that it's the one organization that includes the word physician, and that's who the group that drives the organization, and allowing us to leverage the status physicians have in the minds of the public. We're viewed as being intelligent, that we've seen a lot, we have a unique vantage point into how the system works, and also a glimpse of the suffering that Americans endure as a consequence of this system that we live in. So we're in a unique position, but it's also a disadvantage because we're recruiting new members from a much smaller pool of individuals. 0.3% of the US population have an MD degree. So that's not very many people. And many of those physicians don't support single payer reform, and almost everybody, regardless of what side of the policy issue they're on, they're all very, very busy for the most part. So those are obstacles. So we need to do all we can to recruit additional members from those who do support us, especially in rural states. I think we should also extend our recruiting to other health professionals and even the general population. And the idea of aligning with other organizations, I think, is critical for PNHP to be more effective. I think we should be respectful and lead when it's appropriate, and allow others, even not, including non-physicians, to be leaders as well, and work in coalitions. And when we do work in coalitions, we should make actionable commitments to work with these other organizations in a collegial manner. In particular, we should be there when healthcare issues coming up. Just one example is when the nurses at UVM in Vermont were having a job action related to not having sufficient personal protective equipment to contend with COVID patients. So that's the kind of movement that we should be on the front lines to support, among many others. So that's my thinking on the issue. Thank you so much. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malik. I appreciate your comments. Next will be Dr. Wayne Strauss, also from the Northeast region.
Hi, thank you, Susan. PNHP is special, which of course that's why you're here. We're unique in that we are a national organization of physicians not tied to one specialty. We have growing name recognition and a nascent network of like-minded organizations countrywide. I think what in particular makes us unique is that we have a specific and well thought out plan as to how to proceed to transition to and to implement improved Medicare for all. In giving talks and presentations on my own and for other organizations, as well as during my lobbying efforts, I frequently send listeners to the PNHP website. Likewise, in my op-eds, I invariably send my readers to PNHP. I see the future of PNH being a leader, coordinator, and collaborator of the movement. There are a number of grassroots groups that are forming at city, county, state, and specialty society level, and I see PNHP helping to coordinate these efforts for maximal impact and sharing resources so that each organization isn't reinventing the wheel. I have strong ties to the New York State Academy of Family Physicians, a strong pro-single payer organization which passed its first declarative resolution on single payer in 2005. Mutual support of that and other similar organizations would enhance and strengthen our message. Finally, remaining nonpartisan is a necessary and commendable attribute. It is unfortunate that something as universal as ensuring affordable health care for our entire population has turned into a political idea, whereas in countries like Canada and other single-payer countries, it's nothing of the sort. I work in a rural and conservative community. However, when I talk to my patients about single payer, I find overwhelming support, notwithstanding their political leaning. When it comes to improved Medicare for all, PNHP knows how to lead, and we should help other like-minded organizations to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments here. This group is getting me really enthused, and as if I wasn't already, but I appreciate all the energy that's going on here. Next from the South region will be Dr. Ed Weisbart.
Hi. So I could just say all of the above because the comments here have been great, but I believe we have the assets that we've been hearing about tonight, and that the assets are potentially also liabilities to be thoughtful about. So our number one asset, as we've been hearing, of course, is that we are physician-based, which means that we are specific and unique witnesses to the failures of our system every day. And for that reason and other reasons, we have inherent credibility when we speak to a topic, more than most other groups can inherently have. When we just enter the room, we're seen as authorities. And then the other aspect of being physician-based is that organizationally, I know we only have access to a handful, but we have access to the wealth, the relative wealth of physicians. Other organizations would be just eager to have that kind of access that we have. And being physician-based can also be a liability in that sense. We have a tendency to act like know-it-alls. And honestly, we don't know it all. And this becomes particularly clear when we get outside of our own areas. The other liability to this is that it can be particularly difficult to access mid-career physicians who are just ultra busy. One of the other assets that we need to speak about, what we don't have time too much, is how fantastic our staff is. Just can't begin to say enough about that if you haven't run into them yet. And our most valuable asset, frankly, in my mind, is the student chapters, SNAP. They're a source for fresh ideas if the rest of us are just smart enough to listen to them. And clearly, in my mind, the roadmap to single payer goes straight through SNAP. So it's incumbent upon us to retain them. PNHP used to be one of very few organizations talking about single payer, but that's no longer the case. And we now need to adapt to being one of many. This is a good problem, but it does mean what we've been hearing, that we need to reach beyond our traditional academic roles. What we have to, our role in this new complex system that we have needs to be involved in organizing, educating, and advocacy. Organizing, we are uniquely positioned to be able to organize physicians and med students, and we need to do more of that. No one else can or will as we can. And then likewise, supporting the organizing that's going on in adjacent advocacy groups. We need to continue to do the educating that we do in the medical community through research and grand rounds and such, and educating the rest of the country, frankly, through the work that we do. And lastly, our own advocacy work, as we've been hearing, and then bringing our resources to our allies in advocacy. So that's where the kitchen table campaign that you hopefully know about, and the other toolkits, and our fantastic website, our value at strategic analysis of new policies and proposals. And I think we are a unique organization that needs to take our unique role and expand it. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Weisbart, for those comments too. And now we move on to the North Central region, Dr. Judy Albert.
Well, it's quite humbling to follow all the people that have spoken so far, and certainly I echo everything that's been said. I feel that PNHP's most unique assets are the history of the single-minded dedication to the mission of improved and expanded Medicare for all, and the continuous production of educational materials that land on our beautiful website to support this mission. The educational materials are clear and understandable. The ability to use the slide sets has just been key for me in terms of providing the information to my community. And the message that they present is consistent, clear, and it always reflects the need to remove the profit motive from healthcare. Historically, PNHP members have produced some of the most important academic literature on health policy and its impact on patients. At the same time, we've maintained an equity lens and have been presenting the strong argument that profit does not belong in the healthcare system, period. I believe that PNHP should continue to bear the gold standard for what health reform and Medicare for all really looks like, and hold fast to the main requirements of universal and comprehensive. The continued challenge for PNHP and the movement for Medicare for all lies in the creation and application of our strategies to achieve single payer. We have recognized now more than ever that racial justice is health justice, and neither can occur in a system that's racist from its founding core. We need to continuously call out the two-tiered system that is Medicaid, means tested, and non-functional, which forms our inadequate safety net for the poor, unemployed, and underemployed millions in the United States. We need to continuously educate the medical community and the public about ways in which incremental reforms leave people out of care. This requires maintaining the moral high ground that universal absolutely means everyone, because once any group is left out, we have not achieved our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert, for your comments there too. Also from the same region, we have Dr. John Crossan.
Well, thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. In my view, the main unique aspect that PNHP has, which has been discussed by a number of the candidates, is that physicians, by and large, have respect by the general public. And in particular, they have a lot of respect by their own patients. So when physicians are talking to the general public, or when they're talking to their patients about universal single payer, the patients and the general public generally listen to them. And so in that regard, physicians are very involved in the education of both the general public as well as their own colleagues, because they can speak up about single payer healthcare in many different settings. One of the other things that PNHP has done very strongly, of course, is to be very involved in writing the bills that are in the legislature, in providing the legislators with information that needs to be in the bills. And so this is a very important part of what PNHP does. In my view, one of the most serious problems right now with moving PNHP and moving Medicare for all forward is the fact that many centrist Democrats are not particularly in favor of the single payer Medicare for all. They are in favor of the public option. And we all know the public option is not an answer to getting universal health care. So we have to be involved, and I think we have an ability to be involved in convincing the centrist Democrats that public option is not the answer. We need to get health care for all people in the United States. We can't wait another 100 years to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crossan, for your remarks too. Next from the West region, we have Dr. Hugh Foy.
Hi. Am I
You're on.
there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I think the greatest assets of PNHP are, number one, our strength in numbers, and number two, our history and our mission. You know, we're over 20,000 strong, but many in our ranks, as has been mentioned before, are very, very busy practitioners, particularly since the pandemic. People are overwhelmed. And so here we sit with retired people and everything in our chapter and elsewhere. So we need to reach out somehow to those very busy practitioners and the younger people in our community. Fortunately, despite our name, Physicians for National Health Program, we're not an exclusive organization of physicians, and we're open to anyone who wants to join us. And I think that is truly a hidden strength. Another asset and our strength lies in our diverse, dedicated, and very capable membership and the focus on our mission to educate the public in support of achieving universal, accessible, quality healthcare for all. And that mission springs from the core principle that really inspired this organization, which is justice as a health justice as a human right. And that inspired our founders, who, as many of you know, were members of the Medical Committee for Human Rights back in the civil rights movement in the 60s. I had the honor of traveling to Cuba with Quentin Young and Fitzhugh Mullen, and their dedication and their focus inspired me and really truly changed my life and brought me to the organization. And we started our chapter in Washington State, really after Quentin Young, in his inimitable way, guilt tripped David McClanahan and I one day of why we didn't fire our chapter back up. As many of you know, this vision has been validated and also supported by very well-researched published data from well-respected academic institutions, such as the work we're all familiar with from Himmelstein and Woolhandler, the famous bankruptcy study, and the other people at the Harvard School of Public Health. And their legacy has lived on, as I've learned through a lot of my fellows who have been from Boston and worked with them directly. This use of irrefutable data is critically important in this time of this anti-science skepticism, which has been fueled by the right-wing press. So our role, PNHP should align itself with other single-payer organizations, as we can be most effective by banding together against the seemingly overwhelming odds and the money of the health insurance industry, and its stuffing our politicians' pockets full of money. And you can look up and see how much your local politicians are taking from the medical industrial complex, as well outlined by John Gaiman and others. So truly, we need to be a movement of movements, and we need to band together and expand beyond just the physicians, but also all other health practitioners of all ages and all other people of all walks of life who know in their personal experience that Medicare for all and universal access is really the only decent way to go. So I think we need to continue to join together, educate the American public, and lobby and continue to lobby with unrelenting pressure on our elected officials to do the right thing. With the pandemic surging once again, which is capitalized on the ignorance fed by misinformation campaigns, we have yet to see the true medical and financial consequences that will wash ashore at our feet.
Dr. Foy, I'm going to have to interrupt you because unfortunately your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, but thank you so much for your comments. Okay.
Welcome.
All right. Next also from the West region will be Dr. Kathleen Healy.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Kathleen from California, and I feel our members are our unique and greatest assets. Simply put, Physicians are our hospital and community leaders. We can bring our leadership to medical societies, our local businesses, and our communities to stand before our legislators together with our vision of equitable, efficient, and excellent healthcare as a broad coalition. How can we do this? We build our numbers and influence in our state medical societies and the AMA. PNHP has rolled out a terrific program for medical society resolutions, and we should encourage all of our members to become delegates to their medical associations and form single payer caucuses there. Secondly, let's face it, business has significant legislative clout and money. Single payer would benefit companies. Combining physician and business leadership would create a powerful force of change. Wendell Potter's Business Leaders for Healthcare Transformation is sponsoring the Business Alliance for Healthy California. We're looking at ways the physician speaker can team up with a business leader to educate companies about single payer and enlist their support for legislative change. Connecting with our local and national social justice groups who are interested in health equity can increase our numbers for promoting local resolutions and legislative visits. Lastly, we need to find roles for the residents and working physicians who support our cause, but haven't the time for activism. The New York Times ad with thousands of signatures expanded our collective voice. California is developing a petition to support state single payer legislation, and we hope to collect 1,000 physician signatures. Doctors are experts at communicating people from all backgrounds. We do it every day. We can talk to business, to our patients, and our colleagues. Can we be the trusted group that creates alliances to get the numbers and the influence we need to tip the scales to single payer Medicare for all? I think we can. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Haley, for your comments. And now, also from the West region, we have Dr. Stephen Kimball.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Am I showing up?
Yes, you are there.
Okay. For unique assets that PNHP has and our role in the movement, first of all, I would point to our reputation for pulling together high quality health policy research and information. Many of our leaders have been doing the research supporting this, and we also have people that have been pulling together good quality information from all sources, and that has made us the go-to source for health policy information. PNHP has produced seminal papers on how to establish a maximally cost-effective healthcare system, including the physician's proposal in 2016, the pharmacy proposal in 2018, assistance in writing HR 676 and HR 1976, and numerous handouts and presentations by PNHP members that are available on the PNHP website, which is excellent. We are the primary vehicle for organizing physicians who are concerned with equity and social justice, and to promote a universal access to care via a cost-effective single-payer program. My own role in the single-payer movement is I'm a self-identified policy wonk, and about a decade ago, I decided I was not going to turn down requests for speaking or writing, and so I've done numerous talks. And I've also been very active in the state-based universal healthcare movement, because my feeling is we need to push on every possible front, looking for wherever the breaks may come, because we don't know where they will be or when they will come up. And if we're not pushing everywhere, we might miss an opportunity. So I've been working. I ultimately believe we need a national single-payer program, but state-based movements to do things like kick Medicaid managed care plans out of Medicaid, and have state employee health benefits that are controlled by the state become self-insured and get the insurance companies out, and then try to synchronize those programs so that they're more consistent and achieve administrative savings. Things like this can be helpful and lay the groundwork for single payer down the road. How can we grow PNHP? I think the key is SNAP. Medical students are still idealistic. They haven't yet become jaded, and they believe in social justice and equity, and they tend to be more colorblind than many older physicians. They
Dr.
become too
Whipple,
busy.
I'm going to have to interrupt you too. I'm sorry, but your time is up too.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but we're really on a strict timeline here so we can get everybody to get their comments in. I'm going to take a little break from the questions right now, and we have a comment from Caitlin about our MSR campaign.
Hi, I'm just waiting for my video to be allowed to turn on. But if not, perfect. Thank you, Matt. Hey, everyone. I invite you as I talk to do a little stretching because I know we've been all sitting through very exciting questions and answers. And as we're looking inward to discuss our exciting present, I invite you right now to take the next minute and look outward to consider our exciting future. As many of our candidates have mentioned, we're in a really unique position in our communities as medical professionals to move our medical societies. We know that in the past, Medicare for all could not be achieved because medical institutions such as the AMA stood in the way. And so we're in a really unique position to be able to utilize our voices in our state, local, and national societies to move them along with us. It's our unique privilege to pass these resolutions. And I encourage you, if you're curious about passing a resolution, felt burnt out, but maybe you want to hop in, or are currently passing a resolution right now, to visit our website, sign up right now. You can do it. You have the time. And join us as we move medicine and move our future. And now, I really am excited to introduce somebody who's been so critical in moving medicine, Dr. Ollie Fine. And please fill out that survey too. Can we make sure to unmute Dr. Fine and turn on his video? I know I'm excited to hear from him. And please vote, people, because these answers are really helpful for us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So let me say that you have before you a poll asking whether you are able to, in fact, volunteer to participate in PNHP's Medical Society Resolution Campaign. So quickly, just click on what you can answer and what you can do to join us in this campaign.
Thank you, Dr.
Turn things over to you.
Another poll coming up, Matt. Okay, here's another question about what PNHP should focus on.
Yes.
Fill that out.
Okay, great. This is the second poll. And yes, we would like you to go ahead and check off any of these things. You don't have to just check off one. Check off any of them that you think we as an organization during the next year should focus on. And in addition to that, if there's some other idea that isn't on this list, please go to the chat and enter that idea so that our national office knows the range of ideas that you have. Thank you very much. And Susan, take over.
Okay, thank you, Ollie. Okay, we can move on to the next question that we have for our candidates. And we will go down the same order that we did the last time. And this question will be, and again, you have 2 minutes. It will be, how can we grow PNHP and what can we do to include more physicians of color and younger physicians? And we will start again from the at-large delegates. Dr. Gronemeyer?
I'm back again, and I wanted to say if people can't hear me, or I got some comment that I was unintelligible. So if I'm having issues, let me know. I think that we need to grow PNHP also by diversity of specialties, just because I'm a pathologist and there were not a whole lot of pathologists involved. I think if we got radiologists in it, try to get the groups that are hard to reach, like radiology, which we don't know, they're a little bit harder to persuade about single payer. But I think we need to try to reach out and get more diverse physicians. I think we also need to reach out and try to get, we need to advertise our organization more so that people know that you don't have to be a physician to belong, and we can word out.
In and out again.
And I believe, like, by doing
Can't hear you,
efforts,
Pam.
and I've always belonged to as many different progressive groups as I can.
Pam, unfortunately, I don't know.
And I've also reached out to.
Maybe if you turn off your
Can
video.
you hear me? I've also reached out to do to try to get business groups. So I think we should get. I'm sorry. I'm in DuQuoin, Illinois. Maybe that. Oh, turn my video off. Maybe is that better? Can you hear me now, Susan? Maybe I should.
I think you're a little better.
I'm better now. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do to improve my. Maybe it's we don't have the best
This
Wi-Fi
sounds
everywhere.
okay. This sounds okay. So we'll start your 2 minutes now. So why don't
Okay,
you
thank
start
you.
from the beginning?
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, if you okay. I'll start now. Yeah, like I said, I was initially talking about getting diversity of specialties. I'm a pathologist, and when I looked around, there were not a whole lot of pathologists, but we, just like every other physician, care about our patients and know a lot about our patients. So I think we need to get more diversity in specialties. I think we need to reach out to grassroots groups. And that's why I try to belong to as many different associations as I can, like the League of Women Voters, and try to find like-minded groups, and also reach out to people that haven't been involved in the movement, because I really do recognize the fact that we need more diversity. I mean, that's all too obvious, not only with age, but definitely by race. So I think we need to reach out that, and I think by reaching out to grassroots and people on the sideline, we could also encourage them to talk to their own physicians about single payer, because I mean, many people find out only by asking their doctor what they think about it. So maybe that could be a way we could spread the word. I think also that we should make sure for the SNAP groups, if we could find somebody on the faculty of a lot of the medical schools who is a member, and try to get them to encourage them to create a SNAP chapter, or try to work with them. Because I know many of them, I mean, there aren't any SNAP chapters in the Southern Illinois hospitals, in Southern Illinois medical schools that I know about. So I would really be happy to do that and get involved with them. Because we did a talk one time at SIU in Springfield. And I mean, really, they had no knowledge of PNHP. So, I mean, I think spreading the word. The other thing I think we could do is we need also to reach out to business groups. I mean, I have a small business pathology and laboratory service, and I have employees, and I know what it's like to get employer insurance and how much it costs, and how the fact is my employees, the older they get, and I have good retention, that they cost more. So I think we need to reach out to business groups, because I think a lot of us know about business, and they could, we could explain to them our experience and what we go through. The other thing I think we could reach out.
Pam,
I'm done.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
But we could hear you for that second part. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, and our next speaker, again, we're going in the same order, Sanjeev Shriram.
Hi. So, for all of American history, communities of color have never had a sense of belonging or ownership in healthcare. PNHP needs to be as clear as possible about what tangible benefit single payer will bring to communities who have never had health justice. From my experience in the All Means All campaign to make racial equity a cornerstone of Medicare for All, communities of color are just not interested in how the United States compares with the European or Australian healthcare. If people of color want to see white people with great healthcare, they don't need to look across an ocean. They can look across a river or down a highway. And that's because racial capitalism and longstanding histories of systemic inequities have blocked people of color from getting the care they need and from working in healthcare and becoming physicians. Medicare for All can rectify some of those inequities, but it is by no means a cure-all for racism in healthcare. These are not easy conversations. They're very different from the approaches we've taken before, but this is the kind of candor that appeals to physicians of color and younger doctors. I strongly believe PNHP must build relationships with HBCUs, elevating the brilliant work being done in those institutions to confront systemic racism and inequity. PNHP must invite physicians of color to not just attend events and meetings, but to seek their leadership and follow them, especially when our comfort zones are being challenged. Organizations like the National Medical Association, SNMA, National Hispanic Medical Association, Latino Medical Association, Student Association, have experiences in activism from which we can learn regardless of whether they are as committed to single payer as we are. Many of these physicians and medical students are single payer curious, but not committed. And if we demonstrate a willingness to learn, share, and collaborate, I know we can draw new members. PNHP should build deep, meaningful relationships with racial justice organizations and welcome their criticisms, concerns, and questions about single payer. I also believe that dynamic activism from happy warriors is magnetic. People want to be part of the action, and PNHP should be quick to welcome and deploy people into action that builds existing skills, strengthens bonds with fellow activists, and increases optimism. Not all activism is marches and rallies.
Thank you very much. Sorry, but the time is up again. This is the hardest part of this. I'm sorry having to interrupt people because I'm enjoying what you're saying. But anyway, next time, thank you so much for your comments there. Next, we have also at large, Phil Verhoff.
Hey, thanks, Susan. So to the question on the table about growing and including physicians of color and younger docs, I think there are a couple of problems that we have in this country. One, there are a remarkable number of physicians that have never heard of PNHP. And we live in our echo chambers, and I feel like everybody that I know knows that I'm involved, and I can't understand why anybody doesn't know. But the fact that there are so many docs who have no idea that we exist mean we have not done a good job of just simply getting our name out there. And I think taking a strategic approach to at least letting people know that we're here. I think the second point that I need to make is people got to understand, what do I get out of joining this organization? And I realize that that's a very transactional way to think about this, but people need to see that their membership means something, that it means that they are supporting a group that is for them, that is like them. And we have not done that. And so I think a big part of this is what do we offer someone, whether it's an opportunity to give a grand rounds or to speak or to write or to advocate on the Hill or in local jurisdictions. We need to be a lot more clear about what you get as a member of PNHP. We also need to appeal to all the people that know about us but are not out of the closet, right? There's so many people that I know, I really support single payer, but I don't want to let anybody know. We've got to address the reasons that they have that sort of closet mentality and kind of get them out there. And then, like I'd mentioned before, I think key to this is to get our young people involved.
15
and
seconds.
Great. Intentional outreach to younger docs, to people of color, to minorities. I think it's critical. There are more than enough minority docs. Let's get them in to PNHP and proceed to home. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Phil. Okay, next is Doug DeLong.
Thanks, Susan. Membership is an issue for all medical organizations, and PNHP is no different. Some people say, no money, no mission. The key is to make the organization vital, both personally and professionally. There are any number of important issues competing for our attention as clinicians. From my perspective, I think we need to leverage these large issues of the day, for instance, climate change, structural racism, wealth inequality, and the other social determinants, and call out their direct relationship to health. I, of course, do not have the answer. And I expect that the board has discussed many of the following, but I would throw out a couple of ideas. First, we need to walk the walk and not just talk the talk about JEDI principles: justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. Second, we fully need to support the Students for National Health program, both with mentoring and resources, all that we can muster, and importantly, all that they desire. We also need to partner with other so-called non-traditional medical societies, such as the National Medical Association and the National Hispanic Medical Association. And lastly, getting back to my big passion, advocacy, my experience is that policymakers really are interested in hearing from students and early career physicians. And conversely, younger professionals can be some of the most motivated to challenge the status quo. From my perspective, many of the more progressive ideas that have recently been generated have come directly from this demographic group. Give them the tools and get out of the way. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much there. Okay, next from Northeast is, we'll hear from Scott Goldberg.
Thank you. I think that we grow PNHP by being ambitious. I think that we should set the goal of speaking directly to every physician in America. If there are over 1 million physicians in America, and if 50% of them support single payer, then that's at least 500,000 people. And if we have 20,000 members of PNHP, that means that we have 480,000 physicians that want to join our organization. We just haven't spoken to them yet. This work is not sexy, it's uncomfortable, it's hard, and it's time consuming, but it's the only thing that works in building a movement. We need to be clear and concrete about our strategy. We need a dedicated team of physician organizers within our group and the organizers from our staff to map out a strategy for contacting all existing PNHP members, lapsed members, and every physician in America. We need to convince them all to become sustaining members of our organization to ensure that we have the financial resources to continue to do the work that we are currently doing and much more. And then we need to hire more organizers to do more outreach and so on and so forth. This work is like union organizing. We are organizing our profession. I believe a strategy like this will bring in more physicians of color and younger physicians. I believe that younger physicians are energized by this type of movement building. And we've seen that in movements like Black Lives Matter, the movements for racial and economic justice in this country. We all know that the evidence base for single payer is there. We will not win Medicare for all with more op-eds, more legislative visits, more research studies. We all know that the real work is in speaking with every physician in America and convincing them to join our movement.
Thank you, Scott, for your comments again. Okay, next we have Marvin Malik.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate the opportunity again. I wanted to agree with what Doug DeLong, and also take the safe position agreeing with Ed Weisbart about the critical importance of recruiting medical students. It's a period in their professional careers when they're learning at a very high rate, interacting with large numbers of people. And my effort in that area, as many of you know, is to spearhead and nurture the student internship program. And I think and I'm hoping that these interns will, now that they've had an intensive health policy education, will remain involved with PNHP. They certainly all intend to. And one of the great things this year, now that we had so many students, we had 14 students this year, was that they also really bonded with each other. And they're going to be allies in this struggle for years to come. And they also have met so many of the longstanding members who participated in the internship that they have resources readily available. I think it would be really a great thing if PNHP could do additional fundraising, and I personally am happy to volunteer to be involved in that, as I wrote in the statements we made, to try to support more internships. We have had to refuse students every single year in this internship program, and these are potential leaders. And a lot of the reason we refuse people is that they applied for the internship later. Furthermore, we have not recruited in the Mountain Time Zone or the Pacific Time Zone because there would be logistical issues. So we're further west. Anyway, so I think it will take fundraising, I assume, but I think it would be really great. Furthermore, on the issue of recruiting minorities to the internship, we didn't even have to try, since 72% of the people who applied for the internship and were accepted are from minority groups. In fact, we had one white male in the entire internship. I think it would to expand the internship, I think reaching out to undergraduate students at institutions with large numbers of minority in the pre-med programs would be a next step to try to recruit more minority students. Latino and Black students
Marvin,
are badly
Your time
underrepresented
is
in
up.
medical school classes.
Okay, thank you very much, though. I appreciate those comments.
Yeah.
Next will be Wayne Strauss, also from the Northeast region.
So thank you again, Susan. So how do we grow at PNHP? We can leverage other organizations with similar leanings. The low-hanging fruit includes such things as single-payer member interest groups, MIGs, such as the one I belong to at AFP. The MIG finds members from those who testify or otherwise show interest at our Congress of Delegates, and we found members in very unlikely places, such as North Carolina, Louisiana, and Wyoming. PNHP needs to be active in these national medical specialty associations, acting as mentors, sponsoring talks, and being available at any single-payer presentation to answer questions about us. Outreach should be done at the various primary care specialties, ACP, the AAP, the APA, and ACOG. We not only should have a booth at all of these primary care national meetings, but we should be at national meetings of students and residents, a fertile area for new members. Likewise, liaisons with the National Medical Association and National Hispanic Medical Association, as my other colleagues have brought up, they should be formed since our goals and theirs really dovetail nicely. I gave a lunchtime presentation at the AFP national meeting, speaking about my experience in New Zealand. I had info from NZ Locums at the table. I also had information from PNHP, but only because I asked for it. We should be scanning the presentations at these meetings and approaching the speakers who are giving single payer related talks, ensuring that they have literature from PNHP and perhaps maybe asking for a brief mention of PNHP somewhere in their talk. We should have somebody in an identifiable, brightly colored team shirt there to answer questions or even sign people up. We have a great green and white color scheme and logo for PNHP to expand on this to include t-shirts, polo shirts, a PNHP team shirt. Staff and anybody manning the booths should be wearing the team shirt, as well as any representative giving a talk or representing us. Literally, these shirts increase our visibility. I know that I'm close to being out of time. I'm not out of ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I love your shirt, by the way. Okay, next we have Hugh Foy.
Hey, Dr. Rogers, actually, Ed Weisbart up next.
Yeah, you caught me unawares.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I made that mistake. Ed, nothing personal.
Sure, yeah, I'm not offended.
Please don't be. Okay.
So I think the first rule of being more inclusive, it starts with showing up. And that helps the groups that we're showing up to, I think, somewhat, but it helps us more. Different groups have different insights, wisdom, problems, experience, and wisdom, as I said. We all have a lot in common, but all of the different groups that we're talking about have different needs, need different tools and different strategies. And we can learn from our involvement in broader groups. We can help them, but they can help us if we're more involved. It's the stuff we've been hearing about. But it all starts by showing up and continuing to show up. That happened in Missouri, I believe, to some degree. Our multi-year fight here for Medicaid expansion connected me with a bunch of groups that I'd never worked with before. And I like to think that we learn from each other. When we show up, it starts with showing up, but we need to bring value when we show up. First and foremost, that value starts with our listening. We may be physicians, but as I alluded to earlier, there's a lot that we don't know in addition to a lot that we do know. We need to recruit more younger doctors in the organization and experts on people of color, and then listen to them once they're here. I have seen too often our organization have folks who have this experience and wisdom, and then we don't listen well enough. So we need to listen, especially when it's painful, and then we need to build on what we've already started. I've kind of alluded to SNAP more than once, and others have said it. I think probably the most critical time is during the first year when we're trying to bring people in, and then the fourth year when we risk losing them into the dark hole of residencies until we can kind of lure them back if we're lucky. Engaging mid-career physicians is where they are rather than trying to lure them in as much. And that's exactly what Wayne was talking about more presence. And lastly, I can't pretend to be expert at engaging people of color, but I can promise to be open, attentive, fully engaged, and to show up.
Thank you very much. And sorry, got out of line here with the list. Anyway, next is Judy Albert.
Okay, well, I love the t-shirt idea. I've been wanting a PNHP t-shirt for a while. So I would like to also suggest that. I was wanting to offer 3 different suggestions to grow PNHP, and especially to increase the numbers of younger and more racially diverse doctors, which is a difficult task. Obviously, we start with the SNAP chapters. We want to expose students to colleagues and mentors who share the motivation for social justice work in healthcare, because it's our most powerful tool. Chapter leaders, PNHP chapter leaders have certainly been able to form relationships with student members, having them into their homes for dinner meetings and so forth, offering mentoring outside the medical institution. But PNHP members could also seek opportunities to speak to medical students as part of their medical school curriculums. Or rather than lectures, we could develop study sessions in conjunction with the students on topics like medical bankruptcies, single payer systems in other economically developed countries, the intricacies of enrollment in Medicaid and how that results in churning. And all those things will add up, pointing in the direction of the solution of single payer. Creating more leadership opportunities within SNAP chapters might also motivate those students who are really interested in building a career resume in the areas of health policy or health equity. Secondly, PNHP chapters could align themselves with the mission of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that have cropped up in all institutions, particularly medical institutions, hospitals, residency programs, county and state medical societies. We do have a powerful message in our mission statement, which includes removing barriers to care for the uninsured, poor, and underrepresented populations. We should be taking this message to the professional diversity and equity community in any way that we can. Finally, we should seek out physicians, nurses, and all other healthcare providers who have involved themselves with volunteer clinical efforts. Those who volunteer are marked as activists, and therefore that's a place to meet up with people who may be allies with us. Also, nurses, residents, and hospital workers are organizing in labor unions all over the country. We could be there to support their efforts. Recently, nurses held a vigil at one of our hospital systems in an effort to—
Thank you. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much, though, for your comments.
Okay.
John Crossan?
Oh, thank you, Susan. Actually, what I'm going to say mimics what a lot of other people have said already. And that is, I think that the best way to get more people of color and younger people involved is to be much more active in the medical schools. I was able last year as a faculty member at the University of Minnesota to set up a panel on healthcare delivery. And I had an economist who was sort of neutral on the issue. I had a lawyer on the panel who has worked for over 25 years on Medicare for All, and he is absolutely passionate about the issue. I had a board member from our state organization, and had another economist from the business school was actually in the Trump administration for 2 years, the last 2 years of President Trump's presidency. And this was an extremely valuable panel. The students were extremely involved. It lasted for over 3 hours, and we actually had a hard time getting the students off of the call because they were so enthusiastic about this. The University of Minnesota has been very involved in recent years in improving diversity of the students being admitted, and so we have taken advantage of this fact. And we had 8 people sign up for our internship last summer, which lasted for 7 weeks. We have had a couple of those people really be involved over a number of years, and one of the minorities students who was on the internship a year ago is now currently a board member with our state organization. So I think working with the medical students is the answer here, and I'm very passionate about doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I like your comments. Okay, Hugh Foy again.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Am I on there? There
Yeah.
we go. I agree with John. I just finished a stint as president of our local surgical association and our state surgical association with the American College of Surgery. And we organized panel presentations at both of our annual meetings on healthcare reform. Reaching out to our medical students for us has been tough because University of Washington is a dispersed campus that encompasses many states. So our students aren't in any one place at any one time, but one group I think that we should concentrate on are residents. And I think they're an unrecognized real asset to the organization. Our residents a few years ago had to organize as a union, and I was part of a workers' work stoppage and strike back in the 80s. And we quickly got the attention of the administration to get our salaries and benefits out of the basement at the 3rd percentile. So I think, as well as reaching out to the specialty associations for Native American physicians and also for Hispanic physicians and Black physicians, I think we also need to reach out to our residents more because they're really an unrecognized, incredible asset to our organization. So we plan to move with our residents and the Residents and Fellows Union here at the University of Washington and to others. And I think we can spread out to others. You know, I think it's important that we reach these people because they're tied up in a vicious cycle of phenomenal indebtedness, which drives the current status quo. And we need to break that vicious cycle because they barely get their head up above the foxhole, and we need to help them see that there's a better day coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. I appreciate your comments too. Next, Kathleen Healy.
Thank you. Yeah, we need to go to where groups of physicians congregate. Why not have a PNHP booth in the exhibit halls of our annual specialty meetings? I did a quick check of our own ENT annual national meeting, and a nonprofit can rent a booth for $700 for 3 days. If you sign just 3 new members, your cost would be covered. Residents and young physicians attend these meetings and might be interested in joining PNHP. We should, as many people have already mentioned, join the professional groups of physicians of color and young doctors. The National Medical Association represents the interests of more than 50,000 African-American physicians and the patients they serve. It's committed to improving the quality of health among minorities and disadvantaged people, which is a mission that we share. Can we start a conversation about single payer? There are medical associations of Hispanic physicians, women and LGBTQ physicians, and even Pacific Islanders. Some of these groups have publications that might publish our articles and help us attract new members. We know that some of them support single payer. Can we help them become members? We can join these groups, attend their meetings, and get to know one another, as Ed Weisbart mentioned. We need to link arms with their policy arms and go forward together. AMSA has a magazine, The New Physician, and asks for articles. Could our SNAP students be interested in aligning or forming an alliance with the American Medical Student Association? Physicians who work in free clinics and community or rural clinics may need single payer the most. Reaching out to the medical directors may generate an invitation to speak and possibly more members. Finally, messaging. Our opponents spend large sums on messaging and marketing. What single payer features have the most appeal to which groups? Dr. Ed Weisbart gives excellent presentations on this topic. Would a targeted marketing campaign attract more physicians and more donations? Could we find a graduate program to help us with research? This is an idea that might be worth pursuing. Let's find where physicians congregate, find physicians who may be sympathetic to single payer, and tailor our message to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, and now Stephen Campbell.
I'm not seeing the video yet, but can you hear me?
There you are. Yeah.
Okay, I agree with others that SNAP is the key, and we're more successful in recruiting medical students who are idealistic, concerned with social justice, and tend to be more colorblind than some older physicians. Many become too busy to be very active during residency, but if we get them as medical students, they're probably going to come back later on. We have a lot of work to do to dispel the disinformation and myths that are believed by too many physicians and that are now being promoted by the insurance industry that is rightfully threatened by the single payer movement. The truth is, single payer offers the best hope for a viable, sustainable physician practice in any specialty in an environment that would support physician autonomy and professional ethics instead of undermining them as the insurance companies are doing right now. And we have more than enough justification to do this, but we really need to systematically demonize the insurance industry in the eyes of physicians, the public, and politicians in order to pave the way for political viability of single payer.
Okay, thank you so much, Stephen. Okay, we have a 1-minute question left that I'd like to just go ahead and do, even though that'll make us a few minutes over. But if everyone is in agreement, I'd like to go ahead and do that. And we'll just be really strict with the 60 seconds. And the question for that would be, give your 1-minute pitch on why someone should become a PNHP member. I really would like to see this question. I think this whole format has been incredibly useful and informative, and I'd like to just go on and finish this, okay? All right, Pam? Can we get Pam on the screen? Or is she still having issues with the video and the sound? Why don't we go ahead? I'll go down the list and I'll come back to you, Pam, if that clears up. Sanjeev?
Yeah, hi. I am excited to be part of PNHP and I want to recruit you. We are a dynamic team of brilliant people doing fun, cool stuff to make Medicare for All a reality. Now is the time to get involved no matter what your level of experience. Whether you are a researcher eager to put new evidence into the spotlight, an activist ready to agitate against corporate greed, or just a doctor who wants health justice for every single person, PNHP is excited to have you. We need your skills and talents. PNHP are a community of doctors who build each other up as we build Medicare for All. We are pushing the envelope on how physicians fight for our patients and our communities. There are lots of fights ahead to beat the insurance companies, big pharma, mega hospital systems, and the political systems these corporate greed machines have bought. But as many parts of our country become majority people of color, we must dismantle the racial capitalism in healthcare and build a single payer system rooted in racial equity. None of this work is easy, but at PNHP, we don't agonize, we organize. We educate and agitate. You in?
Okay, great, Sanchi. Thank you. Okay, Phil?
Sure. So for you, a physician, there is no single issue more important than the health of your patients, and there's no bigger impediment to their health than our healthcare delivery system. It impacts every single social determinant of health that you can name. And so I want you to join us to help fight that. I'm not saying that we'll fix every single one of those social determinants, but you can have a bigger, broader impact by fighting the healthcare delivery system that we currently have in place in this country. And we need your voice as a physician to join us. It is only through the united voice of physicians who are really atop the food chain of healthcare that we can make a difference. And so, I want you to join PNHP, an organization of physicians that is dedicated to dismantling the current healthcare delivery system, really for the good of all people in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Doug?
If putting patients first resonates with you as it does with me, and if you find it outrageous that millions lack access to healthcare, and if you are not satisfied with the quality of our healthcare, and if you think care costs too damn much, you cannot not be a member of PNHP. Join me and the thousands of other clinicians and challenge the status quo and right these wrongs. Everybody in, nobody out.
Great, thank you. Scott?
So why should you become a PNHP member? Let me ask you, how many times in your job in the last week have you thought about health insurance? Once, twice, 10 times? How many times have you had to fight insurance companies to get your patients the medications they need? How many times have you been contacted by an administrator to say that your note needed to be changed for billing purposes? How many times have you told patients that they couldn't afford medications because of their out-of-pocket expenses? And how many times have your patients told you that they're in collection because of medical bankruptcy? Now I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine working in a system where insurance was never an issue, where you could practice in the way that you were taught, where your patients never had to worry about copays, deductibles, or out-of-pocket expenses. Just think about what this would be like. Think about all the joy and satisfaction that could return to your practice of medicine. Now think about how we can get there. Think about the only way we get there is with you joining us.
Great, thank you. Okay, Marvin?
Thank you very much. I actually don't give a 1-minute pitch because there's no context where I would use one. Instead, what actually happens in real life is that in the context of a conversation about a case of a patient at work, when something just grossly unjust happens, I divert, which is frequent, I divert the conversation to the larger context. And then after saying some points about the larger context, I ask them and I tell them that I'm a single payer supporter and proud of it. and ask them their thoughts about the US healthcare system. If they don't support single payer reform, I address their concerns. And if they do support single payer reform, this is the most important thing, which in Vermont is 40% of doctors at the very minimum. I tell them you must join PNHP. That's the organization that will make your voice heard. And before I leave that person, I write on a piece of paper, pnhp.org, and I put it in their pocket. And I remind them that at a later time. So I think it's getting people who already agree to join is key.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. Okay, Wayne?
Doctor, come talk to me about the future of American healthcare. You see, I've lived and worked in New Zealand, so I know there's a better way. In New Zealand, the patients were happier and the doctors were happier. No one started a GoFundMe page to pay their medical bills. No one had to file for bankruptcy because they got sick. And no one lost their insurance because they lost their job. And there was one set of rules for everyone. There is a better way. And there is one preeminent organization that is leading the way to improved Medicare for all. It's called PNHP, Physicians for a National Health Program. And they have a well thought out, fair and equitable path to the future. PNHP knows we can do better than this mess of a system. And so do you. Won't you come join me and PNHP in leading our country to a better future? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ed?
Sure you don't want Hugh? Oh, okay. I believe in the value of hope. Medical practice is incredibly satisfying, but also incredibly frustrating. The best treatment for burnout and frustration is taking direct action. So we need a way to turn our frustrations into the hope that comes from action. And PNHP gives you the tools to help your patients outside of the exam room. You need to know that we can do this. You need to know that we will do this. And you need to be on the right side of history. We need you. We want your ideas. You'll be heard in PNHP. Know that you're not alone. There are many of us. An old friend of mine used to say, let's go have a good struggle.
Okay. All right, Judy?
So tonight I'm going to ask you to change the world. If you're like me, you felt exhausted and cynical about your work in medicine, call it burnout or moral injury. We're all faced with the conflict of interest between our patients' needs and the demands of the for-profit medical industry. We don't have a healthcare system. We have a system of no system that's unsustainable and failing in every measurable category. We spend more and get less and rank dead last in healthcare outcomes compared to the rest of the world. We must do better, and here's how you can help. I invite you to join Physicians for a National Health Program, an organization that advocates for a publicly funded, privately delivered, actual healthcare system that covers everyone from birth to death. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan, physician-led group that centers healthcare as a human right. Health equity will not exist until we all have access to the same services governed by the same rules, funded by a single payer. Idealistic? Absolutely. But I can't think of a better antidote to cynicism and burnout than working together for this ambitious goal. Thank you.
Okay, great, right on time, Judy. John?
Yes, just like Marvin, as a pathologist, I'm often interacting with physicians who are trying to do the best for their patients, and then all of a sudden the issue of too much cost for the patients comes up, and I always take this opportunity to tell them about Medicare for all, obviously, and about how PNHP is a very strong organization in support of this. And I basically tell them that their voice is going to have much more impact if they join an organization with over 20,000 physicians and other healthcare providers. And I tell them there is a lot of strength in numbers. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Hugh?
How have financial barriers to care affected your ability to get the care you need or your family needs? How have financial and administrative barriers affected your ability to give the care that your patients need? How has the suffering and death of the pandemic and other common ailments like diabetes and untreated hypertension affected your family and your patients? And why do you think that we don't consider medical care as a human right in our country? Well, we can be at the table or we can be on the table. We can do something to fight these injustices, just like we improve the lives of others by fighting against racism, classism, and financial exclusion. The only way we can turn the tide is by working together, by joining PNHP, and you'll be a part of an organization that's over 20,000 strong and backed by 25 years of experience and scientific data that shows we can do a better job promoting health, providing better and more timely care. The pandemic has taught us a lesson that health is a shared responsibility. Healthcare is also a shared responsibility. Everyone in and nobody out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Kathleen?
Imagine your workday with no authorization phone calls, no insurance denials or appeals, no calls from the pharmacy about non-formulary prescriptions, no patient cancellations due to insurance lapses, no canceled surgeries for high deductibles, and no patients confused or angry about their bills. Imagine having no collection issues, just regular payments from one payer source. Imagine your patients not worrying about affording medications or cancer treatments. Imagine never saying goodbye to a loyal patient because their insurance changed. Imagine a healthcare system that is universal, automatic at birth, with comprehensive coverage and less expensive than what we have now. Imagine feeling more relaxed and satisfied with your practice. You have just imagined a single payer system. Please join PNHP and help realize this vision for yourself, your family, colleagues, hospital, and patients. Here's my card.
Great, thank you. Okay, Stephen? And then we're going to do Pam after you, Stephen. Pam got kicked off of Zoom, but she's back. So Stephen, we'll do you now.
Healthcare policy in this country is now dominated by a false belief that overutilization due to fee-for-service is the cause of high U.S. healthcare costs. The proposed solution is value-based payment, so-called, which means shifting insurance risk onto doctors and using financial incentives to induce them to restrict care. This turns doctors into little insurance companies with an incentive to skimp on care and cherry pick easy patients and avoid sicker, poorer, more complex patients that might take more time or cost more to treat. It also requires extensive detailed data to manage risk, but there turns out to be most usable for cherry picking, not improved care, and it adds administrative burdens and costs that are the real cause of excessive U.S. healthcare costs and physician burnout. It also cements a role for insurance companies as the data managers to support value-based payment. All this leads to increasing disparities, reduced access, and increased costs. Single payer eliminates insurance middlemen, eliminates shifting risk onto doctors with its perverse incentives, restores professional autonomy, achieves universal equitable access to care for all, reduces costs by reducing administrative overhead while assuring adequate physician income in proportion to the training and expertise required of our profession. If this is what you want, then join PNHP.
Great. Okay. Pam?
Yeah, back. I'm sorry.
You know, your video, your audio is still sketchy. Pam, I can hardly understand what you're saying.
My pitch would be that what is our Hippocratic oath come to life? I'm sorry, this is bad. I'm DuQuoin, Illinois, but come to life and make healthcare a human right. We types of this is the way we can do it. It's also great to join a like-minded group because not only we feel a fellowship and we get energized by the people around us. So join PNHP because it's fun and we can do something that will help everybody. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, folks, I think this is the end of the program. I appreciate everybody staying a few minutes late. I think this was a great idea for us to do this, and I appreciate the time and the work that all the board candidates put into creating their statements and all. I thought this worked out really well. There were a couple of kinks, but we can, deal with that for next year. I also want to personally thank the staff. They put a lot of work into this. They were here late at night helping us get through this call. And so just a shout out to the staff, and that is really one of the crucial pieces of what makes PNHP work is the staff that we have supporting us. So remember to vote for your candidates, everyone. The ballots are due in, I think, am I correct, Ken, by August 29th, midnight Central Time. So you make sure that you fill out your ballot by then, and you will get the ballot for whatever region is appropriate for you. Thank you again for joining. I'm looking forward to the year with the new board, and I see great things on the horizon for PNHP.